And while Time Warner AOL may be the golden standard of media mergers gone bad, XM Sirius hasn't exactly been a winner itself. Since announcing its official merger, July 29, 2008, shares are down about 60%. But Howard Stern says he wants new contract terms and may not re-sign with XM Sirius at all. So what's the future of satellite radio, especially if Stern decides to leave? Let's ask David Bank. He's the managing director of global media at RBC Capital Markets and covers the stock. David, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I would actually say, with respect to your last comments, I think if there hadn't been a merger between XM and Sirius, there probably wouldn't be an XM Sirius. So while the stock hasn't done really well, that was at the end of the day, was probably a matter of, whether or not you'd have two going concerns.
So how critical is Howard Stern and his presence to the future success?
Well, I think that it's an intangible. I think the reality is that Stern brings them a unique source of content and that was necessary when Sirius was competing against XM, right? I think ultimately, without Howard, there probably wouldn't have been a Sirius. There was like a 4-to-1 outnumbering of subscribers. Sirius was sort of teetering on real financial trouble, and with Stern, they got a massive bunch of momentum and subscriber growth, and much better brand presence. I think now that you're not really competing against each other, you just have Stern as a brand, and it's really important. But it's could they live without Stern? They could probably live without Stern is the short answer.
So what is going on with Howard Stern? I think you commented to one of our producers earlier that he seems to be negotiating in public.
Yeah, I think Howard's doing a really smart thing. I think he's, very publicly saying to his listeners, look, I'm thinking about not being here anymore unless Mel pays me. And that's a pretty intelligent way for him to negotiate. I think at the end of the day, no one really knows whether or not he's going to continue, but Howard, I think the reality is, can they afford to pay him what they have been paying him? It probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Would he potentially be willing to work for less? I would think he would be willing to work for less if he had to do less. So that might be a solution. Or maybe at the end of the day, he wants to go back to terrestrial radio or do something else completely. The bottom line is I think Sirius is going to renegotiate this deal in a way that's going to be more profitable for Sirius.
In terms of dollars and cents, Stern,
right,
as you mentioned, commands a huge salary. I mean, would that salary savings, say Stern left altogether, shut the door, would that actually make a dent in the bottom line?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yes, I had a little trouble with your earbud there. If Stern left, taking his salary demands with him, would that actually make a dent in bottom line for Sirius XM? Would that be a significant cost savings that could help him?
Well, I think it would be a significant cost savings. The offset is, the number of subscribers that might or might not churn or not ultimately show up. So when we published the original analysis back in, I think, 2006, we figured the net present value positive point for Stern was he had to bring something like 2 million subscribers with him. So the question is, would he lose more than, would they lose more than
Sure.
a couple of million subscribers? Okay. No one really knows.
Okay. Now, considering, though, let's look at the overall business model for satellite radio,
Sure.
right? Look at the growing popularity of the podcasts, iTunes, all this. You can plug the components into your car or the,
right.
So is the model kind of facing some more trouble beyond whatever Howard Stern does in the future?
Yeah, I think I think in the near term it's actually a pretty stable model, right? Because you're looking at penetration that's basically approaching 70% in all of new car sales, right? So basically every car that rolls off the assembly line has a satellite radio in it, and it's factory activated. It tends to be a very sticky product, so that if you have it in your car activated kind of for free for a trial period, you have a 50% chance of sticking with it. I think if you look at the longer term, 5-10 years out, when there's a telematic solution, internet to the car, are you really going to need to pay?
Okay. Got to leave it there, David. Sorry.
Sure.
David Bank with RBC Capital Markets.